Boom. Okay. What up, Gabriel? It's just me and you in here right now. Let some people trickle up on in here. Ooh, y'all here? Y'all here? We up in here? Bless you. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and get this started because I got a flight to catch today. Okay. My apologies on my tardiness, but I feel like we should just go ahead and get into the gig. How y'all doing? First of all, how are y'all on this beautiful Saturday? As you can see, I look like a piece of KFC chicken. I'm real oiled up because as soon as I get on this flight, you already know how the air is so dry on a flight, looking like a croissant when you get off the flight. Just flakes, 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 and layers and flakes. So I oiled up ahead of time. All right. I like. Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about this. Let's get into it. So I'm assuming most of y'all watched the Abercrombie the fall. So the seashell necklace season is over. Listen, personally, I think it is. I'm not gonna lie. As soon as I saw the little puka shells, I got a little triggered. But who has not watched the Abercrombie documentary? Because I'm assuming if you in here, you probably saw it. But is there anybody who did not watch the Abercrombie White Hot, the rise and fall of Abercrombie documentary that just came out, what, 2 days ago, 5 days ago ish on Netflix? I like. Well, just in case you didn't see it, I'm gonna have to suggest that you watched it. Okay. It was very much, it seemed like they just really wanted to get everything out because when I tell you me and Jaden were just sitting there like for what the hour and 20 minutes in silence for the most part, just because it felt like they were packing in so much information into this like hour and a half thing, and it kind of didn't let up. And it definitely felt like, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little nostalgic because one thing that it brought up that was such a big deal, I remember it being, was mall culture. Like, I remember being what, 8th grade, ninth grade, 10th grade, going to the mall just to do that. Not buying a damn thing. Maybe I'll get a soft pretzel if I'm feeling rich. Okay, I might go over to see my good old Auntie Ann. I remember just going to the mall, just seeing your friends at the mall and just walking through the stores and just being teenagers, being broke teenagers that aren't going to buy anything. You would hang out for at least like a solid 2 hours in the food court alone. You would go get your chicken teriyaki. Back in Virginia, there's Potomac Mills Mall. And back in the day, that was a very good like mall culture mall. And if you're from the DMV area, then you might even know Landmark Mall. If you know Landmark Mall, you were deep in Virginia. You were deep in Virginia if you knew Landmark Mall, but Landmark Mall is abandoned now, and I think it'll be so dope to do a photo shoot there. Actually, can I do a share screen situation here? Let's try it. Cuz I have to let y'all know about the glory that is Landmark Mall. Somebody posted a oh, here we go. Okay. How do I share my screen? I could have sworn I could share my screen. Yeah. Video. Okay. Oh, yeah. All my permissions have there we go. Oh, I can't do that. Okay. share. I'm gonna share which window? Which window? Which window? Chrome tab. Here we go. All right, boom. So, Landmark Mall. This is Landmark Mall in its prime. The food court was right next to the arcade, so you would go get full on chicken teriyaki, whatever free sample you got, okay, with some rice, and then you go over to where it says like I think it says Tape World. That was of either a video game store or like a movie store or like a movie type of thing. Back when like actual VHS stores had their own thing. Yeah, so this was like all of this up here, and then everything that you can't see basically is food. And so, one thing that I really loved that that documentary did was just shine a light on mall culture because, goddamn, what a wholesome they know what that was. What a wholesome experience that was. Because now, when you owe everything costs money, you gotta put a down payment down. You gotta buy a plane ticket. Ain't nobody want to go to the mall and just hang out anymore. Bitches want to go to Miami now. Bitches want to go to Cancun now. Bitches want to go to Tulum. But back in the day, all we had to do was go to the mall. But even back in the day, I remember going into Abercrombie and just feeling I think I was too young to understand how sexual that store actually was, how sexual the marketing was. Because so the documentary, let's go ahead and get into it. So the documentary, they go into the photographer behind a lot of like Abercrombie's famous photos, which I'll also pull up. Um Photographer, what was his name? His name Brandon something. Bruce Weber. So Bruce Weber was a photographer. He was pretty much known for taking a lot of like those black and white, all American, topless boys, sensual, kind of like gay erotica. Did not know that. Did not know that. But then again, like I was saying, I think back in the day when I was actually like, I never really frequented Abercrombie, but Abercrombie was just one of those places that you just went into just for the experience. Not even if you weren't going to buy anything, you just went into it. There was like it was Abercrombie, Hollister, and like a Tilly's or like what's the other one? Zoomies. So you would basically like make your round, and then you have like Old Navy, and then you'd have Aeropostale. So you'd pretty much just make your rounds at the mall, regardless of actually if you planned on going into these stores or not. And I think that I was too young to understand how sexual, like the sexual undertones and the things that I was looking at. American Eagle. Thank you, Demarcus. Your name is not Demarcus. Damaris. Thank you. I might just call you Demarcus though, unless that's not okay. But I kind of want to call you Demarcus. Um, I think I was too young to understand how sexual how sexual these images actually were. And so when the documentary went into the fact that not only was it on purpose, not okay. Okay, I will call you Damaris. Um, when it actually went into how intentional it was that a lot of these images were sexual, a lot of the images kind of like tapped into the DL teenager or like the let me not say DL teenager, but there was a specific sequence in the documentary. I highly suggest you watch it if you haven't watched it because I'm obviously going to be referencing it this whole time. But there was a specific sequence in this documentary that was directed by Bruce, most likely even shot by Bruce, where it was just a bunch of guys, maybe like 4 to 5 guys underwater, slow motion wrestling. And it it was that point where I realized, like, oh, Abercrombie out here gay. That's kind of like let Bruce Weber was responsible, allegedly, for a lot of sexual misconduct. So I'm not necessarily celebrating the fact that they did it, but what I can say is the fact that they leaned into like homoerotica was smart, especially because they had this very much like all American blonde hair, blue eyes, ripped abs, cool kid, drives a Jeep, popular guy, one prom king, one prom queen, just a bunch of friends, kind of like a jerk, probably. Like it was that quintessential kind of American teenage kind of like it was the ideal American teenage experience that they were selling. And the only thing that I could think of as we got to this like gay ass chapter of this documentary was all I could think about was Nate from Euphoria. Because I was like, this is literally, if you took Nate, his character, and chose a store that he would shop at, it would be Abercrombie because it taps into that very nuanced experience of being queer but not being out, or being queer and dibble dabbling in like queer culture, queerness, without having to necessarily realize yourself, or not necessarily having to come out or be fully um visible, like I guess like in your queerness. So I'm not saying that it's this thing to be celebrated, but I do think that Abercrombie, one thing that we know is that they are bold and they'll give a fuck. So I almost I can learn, how do I say this without getting dragged? I appreciate the lengths that they were willing to go to show the art in things, to show the art in things that might feel icky, or show the art in experiences that might feel wrong, such as like when men are, or when boys are like figuring out their sexuality, there is like a, obviously I don't have that experience, so I can't speak to that experience, but when I talk to my friends who were like not out in high school, specifically boys, this kind of playful, unspoken, we kind of fuck with each other, but we don't say that. We communicate every day. We're low-key best friends. We're also in love. We may have even done stuff together, but we're not going to say that we did. I don't know. It's a very specific like experience when it comes to like queer male storylines, and so I thought that that was cute. I thought it was cool that they repositioned this thing that is icky and you're supposed to come out and why would you hide and like blah 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 blah. I kind of like that it took something such as being closeted, or took something such as being like sensual, and highlighted it, even though it wasn't, and highlighted it for the ambiguity of it, and not necessarily for how gay it was. Like I almost enjoy the kind of and when people make art and they infer things, they hint at things, and they do it in a really beautiful big way so you understand what's actually happening, but it's subtle. I think that's so smart. Being able to be small and big at the same time. I think that's great. All the other weird shit, not, I'm not on board with that. I'm not on board with that. Okay? Let me just be clear. All right. Um so it really seemed like at the end of the documentary, when they get into, we only want to hire hot people, we only want to hire this type of person, it was very much giving anti-black without saying anti-black. And so at the end of the documentary, it almost seemed like they wanted us to walk away with, it's not that they were racist, they just wanted hot people. But the thing is that like everything that is considered hot or conventionally attractive is inherently rooted in like racism, white supremacy. And so it's like, regardless of how you want to spin it, girl, regardless of how you want to say it, sis, it's like the shit's racist. You know what I mean? Like it's fucking racist. And you know what's crazy? So when the 2004 class action suit came out, they settled, right? I think it was like 40 million or something like that. They settled, and they basically did it again. So in the documentary went into the fact that they seemingly had accepted like repercussions for their actions. We want to market exclusivity. This is that and the third. 2004 comes around, the class action suit happens. They now have to not only own up to the fact that they are marketing exclusivity, which they never really shied away from. They were pretty loud about that. Pretty loud, pretty bold about that shit from the beginning. Like, we only want the hot girls to work here, and we're only going to sell to, well, not only sell to the hot girls, but we're marketing to the hot girls, and we want the hot girls to work here, the hotties. Um, they never really strayed away from, like, they were never modest about that. And so when they actually came back and they said, I wish I wrote down what the new kind of strategy or what the new mission statement was to kind of combat that first round of public outrage. I wish I remembered what it was, but they basically just did it again. And I don't know about y'all, but I feel like whenever I watch anything, whether it be pop culture, whether it be news, regardless of what it is, it's kind of hard to like not see how that system is reflected or replicated in other areas. So it was very much an example of like you have all of these old white rich dudes sitting at the top making all these making all these decisions, right? They get hit with that 2004 class action suit. They spend a little bit of money, which I'm sure was just a little bit to them at the time, and then they just do the shit again. You know what I mean? Like it never happened. And so it was a reminder of all the other industries and ways that this specific system is duplicated. And in that breath, it was kind of sad to watch because I'm like, damn, like, how do we actually enact change in this bitch? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, coincidentally, their idea of attractive was white. Yes, literally, if you go by the handbook, I'm gonna see if they have Abercrombie hiring policy. Oh, yes. So they basically changed it from saying that everybody had to be hot to developing a system of models versus like staff. And if you were a model, that meant you stood at the front of the store. Okay. And if you were a staff, then that means that you're in the back, you're at the checkout, you're basically doing shit that a sales associate would do, which is another way of doing the same exact thing. Hire the D&I guy and keep the same structure. Exactly. 2010s were a very weird time of exclusive white girl guy Tumblr fashion. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I saw a tweet today and it had a very long thread and it had a whole bunch of retweets, a whole bunch of likes, a whole bunch of activity, right? And the tweet was basically saying that the Y2K style is out, the Y2K style is tired, everybody wears the same thing and it's dead, right? But here's my take. In every trend cycle, there's always going to be a bitch in the room that say that something's dead. Regardless, there's always going to be someone in the room that's going to say that something's dead. So I'm not even trying to like necessarily challenge or combat that idea. But one thing I will say about Y2K, the trend of Y2K, is that it is the only trend that I've seen. Am I right or am I wrong? It's the most gender fluid. It's the most gender fluid trend cycle, in my opinion. One. Two, it is the funnest trend cycle that's happening. And three, this is just my theory. I think that anybody who dresses from a decade that's not the current one, so if you mainly dress Y2K, if you mainly dress 90s, if you mainly dress 70s, 80s, vintage, regardless of what the era is, as long as it's not now, in my opinion, you can never be out of style or off trend. Because if you are adopting a fashion sense from a different decade, then that means that you are literally trying not to do what people are doing right now. That's my theory. Okay. So based on that theory, I don't think that Y2K could ever really die, especially considering now we're in 2022. It's only going to get more trendy. Like 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s fashion, vintage is, in my opinion, will only get trendier because it's just going to get older. And Americans have this weird fascination with liking things past the point where it's cool to like them. Like liking Air Forces right now is not like, no one's gonna be like, oh, fashion guy, yeah. Like if you like Air Force Ones. But in 2040, if you're wearing Air Force Ones, then you're, oh yeah, you're the fucking cool guy. Yeah. Vintage. Ooh, 501s. Flares. Yeah. You know what I mean? So in that regard, I'm actually okay with the Y2K fashions. And to be honest, Abercrombie was never giving fashion. Like, let's be honest. Abercrombie would give you a cute graphic tee, maybe. Maybe. They would give you what? Some skinny jeans and a beanie, maybe, a coat perhaps. But like Abercrombie was never really giving the girls fashion necessarily. But I remember the Abercrombie aesthetic. There's this girl named Michelle Martini. She sticks out in my head so much in high school because she is the quintessential like popular, nice. This is a real person that I went to high school with. She was popular. She was nice. To my knowledge, she was like rich. Like I think her parents had money, and her parents would like allow her to throw parties and stuff. And she used to wear like the cute little snug Abercrombie t-shirts with the flip flops. What were those? Rainbow, babe, babe. Okay, she's not paying attention to me. But do y'all remember those flip-flops back in the day that everyone wore? And you would get them from Zoomies, you would get them from like Journeys. And I remember the straps on the flip-flops were a little wider and they were always brown, this like brown suede or like brown, I want to say rainbow, but I feel like that's wrong. Regardless, um, the skinny jeans with the flip-flops. Like that was Michelle Martini, and so this whole thing just made me think of her, honestly. True. And it will most likely come back around anyway, so people just need to let people wear the clothes they want to wear, to be honest. True, true. How do you feel about Converse in that sense? I think that Converse will always be like, I think that Converse are almost like a default shoe. Like if you were to think of Americans and you were to think of like, and you were to assign Americans with a shoe, like what is the most American quintessential staple, well-known shoe? I think that that would be a Converse shoe. Like when I think of the earliest forms of streetwear, I think of Converse. I think of like Adidas Superstars. I think of Adidas Stan Smiths, Sambas. Like it's definitely not driven by, I think I would almost say like the earliest, my earliest images of streetwear, shoe wise, I'm gonna give it to Converse, I think. Because weren't Converse like the first shoe to technically be like, weren't Converse the first like sneaker? Let me Google because what was, let's see. The earliest sports shoes were created by the Liverpool Rubber Company in the 1830s. They were known as sand shoes and worn by Victorians on their beach excursions. Da, 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 da. Our other significant sports shoes of the 20th century included the Converse All-Star, designed for basketball. That's what it was. It was designed for basketball. However, it was Adidas and Nike that both shaped the sneakers evolution from sport to style. Founded in 1924, the company later rebranded as Adidas. Oh, Adi Dassler. Fun fact, Adidas was Adi Dassler before it was Adidas. And it changed in 1949. Huh, you learn something new every day. I guess I think American Apparel and Abercrombie, like Lana Del Rey, Sad Girl, American Girl, boy type fashion. That was the version. Felt very exclusive, white, and gendered to me in high school. I didn't get that. I think that, but in my high school was very diverse. Like it was like oddly diverse for a high school. Like I remember thinking that, like, damn, we just got everybody up in here. Ain't no segregation in this bitch. Okay. So there everybody was wearing Abercrombie, but I think the premier thing though was Abercrombie jeans. If you had Abercrombie jeans, oh, you're rich. You're rich. You are rich. How does it feel to be one of God's favorites? If you had American Eagle jeans, sweetheart, are you eating caviar for lunch? Are you going to have a filet mignon for breakfast in the cafeteria? Does that mean that they had no Abercrombie and Fitch stores in predominantly black neighborhoods, or did they just fly to the nearest white people they could find? Honestly, I in the area that I grew up, it was pretty diverse, and we had a good mix of everything. Like it was very residential, but like drive 10 minutes and you will pass at least three shopping plazas. And so it's like I can't speak to that. I grew up in Woodbridge, and this was back in the '90s, and what I can tell you is Woodbridge in the '90s looked like Atlanta. It also looked like New York. It also looked, like a lot of different places, LA. Secondary school in the 1910s, 2010s, Abercrombie was just as popular with cool middle class girls. Calf Kidston bags? Is that a UK thing? High school 2006, 2007, definitely Abercrombie was taste back in the day, but not the Sperry's. When I tell you Sperry's had me in a chokehold, Aeropostale polos had me in a chokehold. I was wearing Birkenstocks back then a lot. I had this was, I think, one of the first pair of shoes I had ever bought for myself. It was a pair of chocolate brown, low top Converse, and I would wear those out, out with them, out vibes. Asking because I don't know. Were ANF jeans and Levi's on the same level? I have no idea. I would say what's funny is I don't okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have Levi's ever really been trendy? And that's not a bad thing, but that's not a bad thing. Um I don't remember Levi's ever being trendy. However, Levi's have always been respectable and a reputable brand. It's like if you were to ask me at 12 versus 18 versus 20 versus 23, my idea of Levi's, I feel like I'd give you the same response each time. Whereas if you were to ask me about Abercrombie jeans, I'd probably give you a different response every time. In my opinion, I feel like Levi's didn't really become trendy until the last couple of years because everybody wants like, yeah, I have vintage 501s. Vintage 501s, yeah. No, yeah, these are vintage, yeah. With flares. Yeah, yeah. Vintage 501s. Yeah, got vintage Levi's. I don't know why. The vintage has been getting on my nerves, bro. I went into Nordstrom once, like how long ago? It's maybe like 2 months ago. I walked into Nordstrom. I went in there to get something basic. I think I'm going to get masks or something like that. And I walk in and I have on something very basic. And I have on my Rick Owens and my main lines. And one of the sales associates, younger kid, he comes up to me. He's like, "Oh, your Ricks are sweet." And I was like, "Oh, thanks. Appreciate it." And he was like, yeah, I just got like some cool flares to go with them. And I just got this, I got a Chrome Hearts piece and I got like this vintage Levi's t-shirt. And I'm just like, I'm not one for small talk. So I was never the one to talk to in the first place. Okay. So that was the first mistake. But the second was like, I don't know why it is that when things become trendy, they become annoying, or when things become trendy, they become nauseating. Because as soon as he like gave me this little spiel, I was like, oh, these shoes are trendy, and these shoes warrant conversations like this. In Sweden, Levi's were low key trendy like 2004, 2008. I can see that. I can see that. I don't think Levi's were ever popular, but they were reputable and reliable since they are the Converse of pants. True. Very true. Converse be flat though, hurting them feet. Denim jeans in like the 50s and 60s were associated with younger movements and delinquency. Levi's definitely reliable. Those pants last forever. I always thought Levi's were rich people jeans when I was younger. You can absolutely go and buy. So here's the thing about Levi's though, because Levi's has a few different lines, if I'm not mistaken. I remember I went into a Levi's store once and this guy gave me the whole spiel on Levi's with an orange tag versus Levi's with a red tag versus Levi's with a black tag. And I think if you go into like TJ Maxx, any like major like discount department store, you'll find a lot of like the Levi's with the black tags, because those are not the premium cut of Levi's. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. But I do know when it comes to Levi's, there's levels to the shit. And depending on the color of the tag and just the tags in general, you will know which level you buying into. But let's get off Levi's. Let's get back to this Abercrombie thing. All in all, I thought that the documentary is actually really good, and it was equal parts nostalgic and informative. And also very, it's funny because even though this happened years ago, and even though Abercrombie is a brand that has gone through a lot of rebranding, they put out a statement a couple of weeks ago with this documentary about to come out, basically, you know, letting people know that this is not what they're about. This is not what they represent anymore. They're much more inclusive. I believe they did this whole like inclusive campaign, and I personally hate inclusive campaigns. I don't like them, and that's coming from someone who makes inclusive content, mainly because they just come off so try hard. They're kind of like the okay, this is a reach. I'm gonna need y'all to prepare for this metaphor I'm about to make because I'm reaching. All right. When companies that were trash decide to not be trash anymore and do things like offer extended sizing, do things like have more inclusivity in their models, do things like honestly, it's really just those two things. Create more inclusive policy, provide more D&I efforts. They all do the diversity photo shoot. The diversity photo shoot that basically says, we out here, we like fat people. Fat people, y'all can come up in here. Fat people, y'all can even model for us. That's cool too. Every brand does this. Victoria's Secret did it. Abercrombie did it. Every brand does it, especially if you were popping back in the early 2000s. Because if you're popping back in the early 2000s, there is a good chance that you were not popping for the best reasons. Okay, because in the early 2000s, when I tell you nobody gave a fuck, no one gave a fuck. No one gave a fuck. You can say whatever you want, girl. You can make jokes about whatever you want. You want to call somebody gay? You can do that. If you wanna do fat jokes, we can do that. In fact, we embrace it, celebrate it, be trash with us, because it's 2005 and nobody gives a fuck. You know what I mean? Like 2000s, early 2000s was very much like wild, wild west when it comes to marketing and PR. Okay, you can say and do whatever you want. But everybody does that same diversity point photo shoot, and it feels kind of like when somebody starts dreads. Hear me out. When someone starts dreads, we all have to, well, I ain't doing it, but they all got to go through the ugly dread phase. You got to tell the people, okay, yeah, I'm starting dreads. You have the little baby dreads. People know that you're starting your dreads. People see what part of the process that you're on. People see that it's going to take you some time to get to where you need to go, but people see that you're trying and you're going through it. That the baby dreads phase is the same thing as a brand coming out and saying, we are going to be shit now. We weren't shit before, but we're going to be shit now. And it is rough to watch. It's rough to watch. All right. because you see the effort that's being made. You see the effort that's being made. You see the little strides that are happening, but ultimately, you know, time will tell. Locks, not dreads. Locks. My bad. Locks, not dreads. Because the girls be getting the fake dreads, right? Because dreads, locks, because when you say locks, it basically explains the locking process of your hair, and dreads can be not that. Am I wrong about that? Girl, I made one decision with my hair, and then I never considered hair again. So I don't know. My hair knowledge is not vast. It's always being forced and forgotten in a month. True. Similar to Alexander Wang, which back on the scene. Back on the scene. Back with the girls. I don't know if y'all saw that. I went to high school in the late 90s. I could never fit into any jeans I want. So y'all can see this. I want even that big butt. The jeans were so. I saw a tweet earlier today that said that the term dreads were used as a racist term to call our hair dreadful. Really? I did not know that. Is dreads a term birthed from white supremacy? Shock. Do you see the shock on my face? Whoa, white people doing things wrong? What? What? I apologize for that. I did not know that. I only call non-black dreads. Black folk get locks. Okay. I did not know that. Well, the more you know. But yeah, man, I gotta catch this flight. I just wanted to kiki about this Abercrombie stuff. If you haven't watched it, I suggest that you watch it. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to take in. Also, one thing I want to do, I wish I worked for Abercrombie because them bitches look like they were having fun. Drinking, okay, trips. It was giving very much like startup. You remember when startups were first a thing, when startups first became a part of the conversation, or when startups first became a part like a business structure? I would say what, back in 2010, around 2010, early 2000s, startup culture. Ask a Jamaican, you Americans say anything. Are you a Jamaican? Or are you American? Are you both? Dreads are dreadlocks, Rastafarians. Okay. So there's a lot on this dread versus lock discourse that I need to look up, apparently. I thought it was initially started by Rastas that wanted to incite dread in the enemy with their hair. Oh. I'm learning. Oh, she said I am in Jamaica. I am in Jamaica. We use locks for those who are not Rastafarian. Oh, interesting. And really, this is more of like a conversation on just how even Americans, similar to like how sometimes when you're white, it's hard to see past your privilege. When you're American, it's hard to see past your Americanness. It's hard to understand the context of hair and terminology beyond just what we do in America, especially when it comes to customs that were not created in America. So, no, this is interesting. I'm a Jamaican with locks. My father was Rasta. So you in here. American exceptionalism. Okay, I'm gonna look that up. But y'all, I gotta get out here. I gotta catch this flight. Thank y'all for coming through to the live show, to the live stream. Okay, we're gonna do this again. And do not forget, y'all, I feel like we're leaving on a weird note, but we learned about Black History today. Happy Black History Month. uh, fuck Abercrombie. All right. And I'm gonna have to see y'all soon. And another one. And do not forget. Where would you want? Where would you like? And where not see y'all boom. Boom soon. Bye.